My name is Dennis La Caria. I'm the Executive Director of Facilities Management for Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, and I'm glad that you have joined us tonight to hear about new middle school number 1. Before we start talking about the design and the project itself, I want to invite Ms. Terry Serbic up to say a few words.
Thank you, Dennis. Good evening, everyone. This is an exciting night. What a great community, and you just continue to grow. So as this amazing new middle school goes underway, I just want to have a couple of reminders of looking back. The school board has approved the boundary changes in 2023, and this school is scheduled to open in the fall of 2026. So we are in the middle of a comprehensive review that entails a third-party company doing a 10-year forecasting, and we'll report on that in the upcoming months. If any shifts need to be made of information that's already done, we will find that out in the review process and certainly communicate that out. Just want you to know that we're excited. The event tonight is to share this amazing project that Dennis has to show you. And I just wanted to let you know that we'll be out in the community talking to you once our project gets underway. Hope you have a great evening, and thank you, Dennis.
Thank you for coming. So again, yes, we are here to talk about new middle school number 1. They are not given any more fancy names because for years when I gave the board updates about Ridge Road Middle School, they wound up naming it Ridge Road Middle School, and we don't want to necessarily get into that again. So we now refer to schools under construction for relief by their classification and their order in the bond. So this is new middle school number 1. It is being funded through the 2023 Bond Referendum. Those of you who supported that bond referendum, thank you, because it's giving us the ability to do this work for our students and our staff. We're joined tonight by the design team who are going to walk you through the project. There'll be time for Q&A at the end. We'll come around and get your questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gary Lang.
Thank you. So I am Gary Lang, and I have Katie Nichols here with me. We are architects with Hord Coplan Macht, and our building has gone asleep. Let's see if we can get it to move any quicker here. Thank you, Ken. Just hit the up or down arrow.
It's not the auditorium.
We going anywhere?
You made it go forward and back.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the front view of our new middle school, looking at the entry. And real quick, what we'll do is, team introductions. I've already introduced you, myself, and Katie, and we also have our construction manager with Messer Construction here. And we will go into describing our site and the location, the building design, the schedule, the complete schedule of the project, and then we'll open it up for some questions and answers, and then give you a little bit more information on where you can get more bond information. So just in general, I'm sure everybody knows where we are, but our school is out by Providence and 485. It's actually right off of Tom Short Road. The project itself is part of a larger development, but what we're going to be doing is focusing realistically on our 20 acres, which is up here in the right-hand corner. So if we zoom in on that, you'll see this is our 20 acres, and 20 acres is what it takes to put a middle school on a piece of property these days. The building itself is right on the corner of Tom Short and an improved Golf Links Drive. The site itself, you can see that it's pretty jam-packed with all of the amenities that go into making a middle school. all the parking that's required, of course, the bus lots, the baseball and softball field, and a full track as well as football field. And all the way up in the top, you can see even things like discus and shot put, those kinds of things. And at the very, very top of the project is a green buffer. We have a swale with a creek up there, and on the other side is a residential neighborhood. So one of the things we are doing is at Tom Short Road and Golf Links Drive, we will be installing a new traffic light. And most everybody will be coming, of course, down Golf Links Drive and then up the side. So this yellow represents the stacking that we're required to have for all the vehicles during pickup and drop-off times of the school day. So we well exceed all the requirements of the amount of stacking of vehicles so that all that traffic does not back up either on Golf Links Drive or Tom Short. So that's the way you come in. The buses come in right off of Golf Links Drive, and then there's a full bus lot. And the bus riders will have their own entry to the school right here. And all the people being dropped off by vehicles will follow the loop and come around, and that's the front entry of the building. It is important to note at this point that all of the track and field, the softball and baseball field are all synthetic turf. That way we can play on them a lot more often than if they were just natural grass. The other thing I'll point out, since we were talking about the green buffer, is that there is the creek that runs across here, and right now there are some culverts going across Tom Short Road not as part of this project, but because of this project. That is going to be replaced, and there's going to be larger culverts so that all the water that comes in off of everything will be able to go through those pipes a lot easier. The other piece to note is that going to the property, all the neighborhood to the north, there is a pedestrian bridge that links our property to their property. Now this pedestrian bridge will just be that, for pedestrians only. It's not designed for cars or vehicles of any kind. So take note of, once again, our entry points into the school, because what we're going to do is to look at the floor plan. This is the way you exit. The blue dotted line is, once you drop your kids off, you'll just come around and exit the property that way. And that way it's designed so that traffic never has to cross each other. So here's the plan of the middle school. And as you can see, we have the same points that we talked about earlier, which are the main entry to the school and also the bus entry over here. One of the key points of all of this and the way it's designed is that the admin is between those 2 points. And here's a blow up of the admin. And once again, I'm giving you the same arrows for the main entry, which comes into a large vestibule that's sized to accommodate all of the new CMS security measures. And down the side here is the bus entry with a large vestibule as well, so that it will house also the same security measures. If you're a visitor or anybody coming to the building, will come in the main entry, they'll come into the vestibule, and then they have to come into the reception area and check in before they could actually enter the rest of the school. The other parts of the admin area, as you can see in green, all of the offices are at the perimeter of the building. And this is so, number one, they can have daylight and views for these offices, but also it's a great security measure to have all the offices around the edge so that they have a great visual field of everybody coming in and going out of the property. In the blue, we have all of the support facilities, the workrooms, the break rooms for the teachers. We even have an itinerant office area up here that can hold 6 desks for people coming in and just wanting to lay down for the day. We have our student services office down here. And probably a real important piece is the student resource officer is located right on the corner of all this traffic. So that student resource officer has got big areas of glass. He can see who's coming and going and has complete control of the building. This is looking back at the building. We're kind of hovered above the track and field looking back, and so you can see how prominent that admin area is between the entry for the cars and the entry for the buses. And this is a shot down at ground view, you just drop somebody off, you park your car. So there's our main entry going into the school. On the left-hand side is the admin area, and on the right-hand side is the media center and workspace associated with that.
So as Gary said, the center of the school has the admin suite at the entry points, but along the entire school is the spine. The spine is made for circulation for their students. So you'll notice at one end in the circle, you see a monumental stair. That is going to be the main way that students access the upper level floors. And with that statement, if you'll go to the next slide, the right-hand side for you is a one-story building. This is going to be the main shared spaces for staff, community, students, etc. And then on your left-hand side is a 3-story building, which is what will hold the main classrooms. Can you go to the next slide? This is the rendering that we showed earlier, so you guys can see the size difference and the different scales between the buildings. So again, over here, the 3-story building is your classrooms, and then the 1-story but portion of the building is your main circulation space for larger events. On that spine, one of the main things we wanted to focus on is how can we get our students natural daylighting without a lot of glare. If you've ever been in a hallway that has a lot of glare, it's very hard to see where you're going. So along with having materials that do not have a high reflection, we have diffused daylighting so the students can see what is happening outside. Is it raining? Is it sunny? What time of day it is? And you will also see the main security vestibule, and you'll see that that also, why it is a security vestibule, still allows a lot of daylighting and views out so that you don't feel like you are enclosed. One of the main spaces in this spine is going to be the cafeteria. In the cafeteria, you will again see that there is a bus entrance that is attached almost directly. That is because in the morning, students can then come into the cafeteria that holds about 400 students at a time, and they can get ready to go to class. So they can be staged there before they enter the building. They can go have breakfast if needed, etc. And you will see that this is made for 3 lunches. So with 400 students per lunch, that way we can get all the students in a quick succession. Directly adjacent to that is going to be the gymnasium, and the gymnasium is also going to have a stage. So again, you'll see that we included natural daylighting, but again, preventing glare on the courts. So if students are playing during the day, they do not have that glare reflecting back at them. The bleachers in this gym will hold about 400 people. And then when you turn around, you will see that there is a stage directly across. So while the bleachers hold 400 people, during events, you can fit about another 450 people on the actual gym floor, which has multiple courts. It has a full-size middle school court and 2 cross-center courts. That way you can get around 900 people in for the events. The stage will also have lighting and sound requirements. And if you go to the next slide, while there are basketball hoops, they are retractable, so during events you do not have the basketball hoop in front of you trying to see the stage. One of the last spaces I'm going to talk about is your media center. So the media centers are not the media centers that we all grew up with. They are more flexible. They have lots of different uses, whether it's for staff, students, or the community. We wanted to make sure that our media center reflected that. We wanted to make sure it was very inviting. You again have natural daylighting. You have a very natural palette that can include relaxation. Where your view is right now, you are standing behind the reception desk. So if you'll go to the next slide, you'll see that our media center is laid out in different zones. So there is the typical book stacks, which you will see in the middle in the white. You will also see there are teaching requirements. There's desks if a teacher wants to come in and give a lecture. Can you go back real fast? You're fine. There's also soft furniture for touchdowns, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I also want to draw your attention to the maker space in blue. So this is a large, flexible space that can be used by different arts, math, sciences to use for different types of experiments or classes or lessons or art creations. You'll also see in the bottom is a TV studio, which will be able to be used by staff and students for daily updates and productions, and that way they can be broadcast to the school. So when I mentioned the soft, flexible seating, we did this so that way there are more interactions between students and staff, and it's not just always a lecture kind of situation. Students can be more relaxed, they can read, they can do homework, they can have a conversation with their peers and the teachers, and they are not stuck in a typical desk or table situation. It also allows for different uses that can be rearranged if the community needs them.
About the assembly spaces on the right-hand side here, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit more about the classroom, the 3-story classroom wing that's on the left-hand side. So on this lowest level, you can see that up on the top portion of it, we have a series of classrooms. And on the bottom side, we have all of the art rooms. One of the things you will notice is that the building is laid out so that every classroom has windows and has daylight and great views to the outside. In the art suite itself, we have, starting from bottom to top, we have visual arts, we have dance, we have theater arts, band, and also choral music. Here's a example of, this is one is in the band room, just looking back, and once again, we have plenty of daylight coming in. We usually take our shots looking away so that you don't get glared by the windows. But all of these spaces have been analyzed for acoustics, so all the panels are specifically designed for this band room. As a matter of fact, you can see, it's hard to see, but this one girl here must know something we don't know because she's putting on her noise-canceling headphones. Then when we go upstairs, this is the second floor of the 3-story classroom wing. So you come up the monumental stair again, and you have a very simple configuration of a corridor with stairs also at either end. Whenever we've done this in the past, we have found that 90% of the time, the students and the principals prefer to use the larger stair in the middle all day long to go up and down. So for that reason, we have actually oversized this stair to accommodate the amount of students that will be going up and down. If we take a look then at that core area where the stair is, you can see on each floor you come out of it, and the core is designed the same way on all the floors. You'll have restrooms for both the students and individual restrooms for the faculty. There's an elevator that's right off of the stairwell. You also have a teacher's teams room where they gather to do their daily planning, and also a smaller resource classroom. And then we're looking at the third floor, which is very similar to the second floor with all of the classrooms, science classrooms that are joined together. In between each of the science classrooms or the laboratory prep spaces. And then also on these floors, you have a couple of CTE classrooms for each of the floors. This is a rendering of the exterior of the building that's overlooking Tom Short Road. Now, I will tell you that right off the hand that you'll never get to see the building this way because we have zoning requirements, and those zoning requirements, there's a planting strip, and this will be full of trees, so it will actually buffer the classrooms and everything from that noise of the streets. But I wanted to show you the building, not the trees, so that's why our rendering looks like this. So you can see in this is that main central stair that has a whole bunch of light because we're trying to make that a key point of the project, and each of the classrooms, once again, has natural daylight all throughout. So, schedule-wise. So here we are. We're almost at November. We've been through designing, and we're in permitting right now. We're finalizing permitting and also the procurement of all of the trades. We will actually start the construction and put shovels in the ground mid-November. The project will run a little over a year and a half, so that in July of 2026, we will be finished with the building. We'll have all of our punch lists completed, and at that time, CMS will come in and start moving in and occupy the building for August of 2026. So that's our presentation of the building and the site. So at this point, I will open it up for any kind of questions that you have.
And if you'll raise your hand, Mike Higgins is going to come around with a microphone so we make sure we capture it for the video as well.
I got it.
Okay, thank you. Hi. So I have a child currently at J.M. Robinson, and the way that building is structured is there's 3 hallways of classrooms, and they do a really nice job of keeping each grade siloed. There's a 6th grade, 7th, and 8th grade, which is especially comforting if you have a 6th grade kid and they're not around the giants. So since you have 3 floors, is the plan to have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade on the 3 different floors?
So I think, one of the things is we obviously don't have a principal, and so some of those decisions are going to be made by the school leader, but that was sort of one of the intents, right? So that's why you see CT classrooms on every floor, science classrooms on every floor, recognizing the art space is special, and everybody's got to get to the media center, everybody's got to get to the cafeteria. So there's no way to completely eliminate intermingling, but it's going to be controlled and managed.
Okay. Hi there. I wanted to ask about the general site overall, looking kind of off in the distance and things. And obviously, CMS can only speak to your 20-some acre parcel that you said. But what about, you mentioned the new traffic light being put in there, and just wondering about pedestrian crossing or pedestrian access. I think I see some sidewalks will be put in there. So what can you speak to about the pedestrian access for those of us who live close enough to perhaps not need a bus to get to school?
And so there are a lot of different elements. So one is with the widening of the culvert, right, that allows for pedestrian access that doesn't exist right now along Tom Short. But you can see there's an awful lot of connectivity. The pedestrian bridge to the north, that we're making that connection into the neighborhood, again, for pedestrians only, to allow kids to walk down without having to go around. And then throughout this entire development. So there's sidewalks and multi-use paths all along Golf Links Drive and down Red Rust and the other roads as well. So the intent is to connect everything, especially internally, with pedestrian connections, but then doing more to get kids across Tom Short safely with the light, with the signalized crosswalk, and more sidewalk along our frontage and everywhere that we can add it to be able to make those pedestrian connections.
My neighborhood, right? So coming from Audrey Kell Road and turning left onto Tom Short versus straight through that intersection up to it would make more sense for us to travel left on Tom Short and right into it. But it looks like the traffic pattern, you're trying to get everybody to come in through Golf Links.
So our driveway is on Golf Links. So our connection for our driveway is actually on Golf Links Drive. So everybody has to come in to Golf Links to get to our driveway, whichever way they want to come, whether they're coming from the Providence side, whether they're coming from the Tom Short side, whether they're coming from the neighborhood. If you're coming by car, you're going to have to make your way onto Golf Links to get into our driveway.
So currently that intersection of Tom Short and Audrey Kell is abysmal as it is. Is there any plans to mitigate some of that further congestion that we'll have if you're trying to direct the traffic that direction?
There is, but not all of it is on CMS.
Right.
So there's some that the developer is having to do as a result of the rezoning. So there's work that we're doing, in particular the signalization and these other sorts of connections. We're actually building all of Golf Links Drive as part of this project. So that will be delivered, and we'll have that connectivity at the time that we open the school. But there are other things that the developer, the private developer, is also having to do, including at that intersection as a result of the rezoning.
Sorry, one more follow-up. So you were asking about the sidewalks. That corner there, which is that butterfly sanctuary, is it possible to put sidewalk there so they're not having to go up and around if they're walking or biking, like you were saying? Is there pedestrian plans for all of, or just for Golf Links?
So there are pedestrian plans, again, that are tied to our work and the stuff that we're having to do. And then there are other things that are being placed as a responsibility on the private developer. So some of it may happen in phases, but it's, again, about how the responsibility is assigned.
Good evening. So how does the bell schedule fit into this? I know that hasn't been determined yet, but how does that play into all of the traffic that we're talking about, and when will that be decided?
So just like with any other school, as we move towards, naming the school, hiring the principal, all of those things, we'll evaluate the bell schedule. We evaluate the bell schedules at all of our schools every year, but obviously with Rea Farms and Polo Ridge, we have to be in a different lift in order to not have things conflict, but that will be worked out over time with transportation.
Let me squeeze by.
Hi, you briefly on a redistricting by a third party or a assessment of redrawing all the boundaries by a third party company, and I was just wondering if you could talk on that a little bit more. We just went through all of that with Polo losing our relief school and our middle school and our high school. Like, is this going to be a redrawing that affects us again, or can you not speak to that just yet?
So I can just speak briefly to that because we have just started the comprehensive review. We're in the introduction stage. The 10-year forecasting is being done by the company, and they are going to report out at a board meeting. So you're welcome to listen in on that on the 22nd. And there's no plan changes for anything, but we just always like to say if something comes up in that review that we would come back and visit that. Does that answer your question?
Hello. So regarding the rezoning or anything of that sort, if it is going to happen, just want to put in one word here about budgets and about Polo Ridge parents. One of the few parents who are a Ballantyne Ridge first-year parent as well. So I love this school, amazing principal. It's just going good. And I'm excited about the new school. But a lot of the thing that is worrying me is the PTSO and the PTAs are bankrupt, frankly speaking. It is so difficult. And now Polo Ridge parents like me, I will have to shell money here, and in 2 years, I'm shelling money there. And there's a lot of money feeding from my family into both these schools. I am really worried about that. The bond, I know, pays for lovely things I see on this map, amazing things, amazing facilities. We saw it in this school as well. It is really good. But what we are really struggling is some of the very key needs that I saw in Ballantyne Ridge. I attend their PTA meetings. I keep hearing there are posts continuously on the website right now. You can see the kind of really silly things we think CMS could have done for the school, but we don't have. Very, very basic things. Theater, band, orchestra, anything, sports. It's like we thought the CMS would pay for it, but we are having to shell a lot of money from all these families to the school for the first year, especially the first year parents, and I'll be there in both places. I am really worried. So,
Thanks. Yeah, and again, I don't know that anything was meant to suggest that we're changing the boundaries here. I don't think that that was the intent of sharing the fact that we're undergoing the comprehensive review, is just to make people aware that that was happening. So these boundaries were adopted by the board in 2023, and only another action by the board can change those boundaries. So we're moving forward with the boundaries that we have and with the intent of opening this school in August 2026 according to the decisions that have already been made. So just want to reassure everybody about that.
Can I squeeze by you? Thank you, Bess.
I suppose it's a somewhat related question. It doesn't have to do specifically with the facilities, but maybe to piggyback off of what you're saying, you're talking a little bit about more what's actually happening in the school and getting all of the non-supply, like the supplies that we don't see in here. Like, you aren't in charge of all those trombones that we saw in the photo, in the renderings there. So you had the timeline of all those different kind of things. So maybe someone in the room here in one of the departments knows the general time frame for selecting that principal, like you mentioned, to really set that culture of here's how we're going to organize the classrooms, here's how we can start building that way. Can anyone speak to the time frame on selecting the principal?
So again, not per se, and again, tonight we're here to talk about the project itself, but again, if you look to Ballantyne Ridge and what happened here, it would be a similar sort of timeline. Like, we like to have the principal on board to do the work with the community, to pick the mascot, name the school, all of those sorts of things, so well in advance of the school opening. And relative to your point about the trombones, we buy those. So when the school opens, it's going to have all of the furniture, fixtures, and equipment that's necessary to do school, right? So we don't just say, hey, parents, go buy the violins. They're there when we open, so just be reassured of that too.
Thank you. So quick question when you're talking about the principal being hired ahead of time. So I'm also here at Ballantyne Ridge, and I do feel like if the principal, I mean, he was hired well in advance, right? And he got to help with a lot of different things. But I do think some decisions were made ahead of him, and some of just the basic furnitures and fixtures and stuff like that. Is there a chance that this could be maybe earlier so that they could have an earlier say in how some of that is spread around?
So I think what's important to note is we have standards. So whether it's an elementary school or middle school or high school, we have a big book, I mean really big, several thousand pages of standards that are specifications. So we provide to our designers and to our construction managers, and they design and build to that. So we do the same thing for everybody because equity is important. So from the standpoint of making sure that we have a standard, every one of our elementary schools is 45 classrooms. Every one of our middle schools and K-8s is 54 classrooms. Every one of our high schools is 100 classrooms. They come with what they come with unless there's an additional specific program that requires something new or unique or different. And so those decisions aren't discretionary. They're made by the district, and we set things up that way from the start. There are decisions that are discretionary, the mascot, those sorts of things, but we don't debate whether or not we're going to go with a different auditorium chair. These are our standard, and this is what we're comfortable with, and we know the quality that we're getting and what we're providing, and so we don't want to debate that.
Hello, I just came late. Could you show me that map where this place is actually located? Okay, and is there any plans for adding any bridges or any new roads coming into this, any major changes to the
So on this diagram right here, Tom Short Road coming up and down the page here is existing. And there's a part of Golf Links that is also existing, but we're actually going to be recreating this entire Golf Links drive so that it comes back around and connects. And also as part of our project will be this offshoot road that is really just serving the school. And when we talked earlier, there is this large neighborhood to the top, so there is that pedestrian bridge that will connect to that neighborhood. Yes, there's a little turnaround right at the end here.
Yeah, I just asked, is that going to be a dead end where, I know you mentioned it's just a pedestrian bridge, so obviously no vehicles can go through there. So if you're turning whatever that to be determined road name is, essentially you're just going to the school, right?
Correct.
There's nothing else. Just a couple other questions. I saw one picture, and it's hard to tell here, but in your one visual from Tom Short had 2 lanes going northbound. It currently is 1 lane. Is the plan for it to be widened?
That is not part of our project to do any kind of work other than the traffic signal on Tom Short.
So it was just speculation,
yeah.
I guess, in that rendering, right? So good to know. And then I noticed the I think you called it monumental stairs. Mm-hmm. I think from that Tom Short rendering, it looked like there were doors in and out of there as well, too.
Correct.
Will students that walk from, say, the west side of Tom Short be able to enter the school there, or do they have to walk around and get there? I guess, what are the point of those doors if they can't go in? There's no security screenings, all that.
Our intent is that all students during the day will enter the 2 main points of the building, because that's where we have all the security. There are doors, as you were pointing out here, and on each one of the stairwells, but those are egress doors for fire and life safety requirements. So all the students will have to come into the school and either come through the main entry and or the bus entry.
Yeah, all of our middle schools, K-8s, high schools have Evolve scanners. You saw them when you walked in here, and so those will be in operation at those two entry points. So we want to make sure we're funneling everybody through one of those two doors to be checked in, because the intent is, again, once you're in for the day. We don't go home for lunch, right? We don't, right? So you're here, and you can only come in two ways. And if you're leaving by those doors, it means there's something wrong. Right, we're doing a fire drill, something like that.
Yeah, just one, I'm sorry, I know you walked away, but that visual that has the two doors, is it possible to update that so it's not misleading that you're going to have two lanes on Tom Short?
Sure.
Since this will be made public to everyone.
So on the slide before this one that showed a little bit more of the map, yes, that one. So a lot of our community at this middle school will be from Polo Ridge, which if you go down Tom Short, like to the south, that's where it's located. So if you, when you're working on this, if there's a way to make that stretch walkable from Polo Ridge to the new middle school, because a lot of us will have children at both, there'll be siblings at both, and I can definitely foresee like my middle school son coming to pick up my elementary school, or walking, or in the morning I'm walking them both, and we do a pit stop at one and go to the other. And so a lot of your walking information has sort of come from like the lovely pedestrian bridge at the top, or to the east where the new stuff will be built. But for those of us coming from Polo Ridge Elementary to the middle school directly, will there be a safe and clear path of sidewalks, stoplights, like crossing guard, whatever, to get from the elementary school to the middle school, which are very, like, what, half a mile apart?
We're building the connectivity that we can and what we're being made to do, but all of that is being looked at by NCDOT. And again, there's stuff that's on the developer as well. And so making sure we have safe ways to get across Tom Short is absolutely part of this. But yeah, to the extent that we have as much pedestrian connectivity as we possibly can, that's part of this.
Your address on the map says Tom Short, correct? But the entrance is
It
Golf
probably
Links.
does, but at the end of the day, so as, you know, we're acquiring this property, it's a long process. And so where we got to ultimately with the design is that, road there to the north that's bounding our property there isn't a road anymore, it's our driveway. So we'll probably have a Golf Links Drive address when we're done, because that will actually be our driveway.
Actually, we've submitted for the address now, and this is a road that's called Camp Verde, and our address is on Camp Verde.
I don't know whether they were going to name it a street, because it's not. It started life as a street, but now it's just a public right-of-way.
Mike's getting to work out.
This project is obviously part of a larger construction project, as we can see from the map here today. I know you're focused on the 20 acres. I'll be honest, I don't know where I can go to get information on the rest of the project to understand their timelines. Are our kids going to be going to school in an active construction zone until how long? Where is the construction entrances and exits? And so while we are focused on that, I'm trying to see the big picture and this map to understand the implications of all of those specific items. And again, trying to understand how do we push for widening of Tom Short, for example, and all of those things.
Sure. So, at the end of the day, we're focused on that because that's all we're doing, right? We're building Golf Links. So to your point, we wanted to make sure that road was open and available before we opened the school and didn't have construction underway. So we know we've got that connectivity into Rea Farms and out to Tom Short. So there was a reason why we didn't just stop at our school driveway and took that on. Beyond that, it's entirely up to the private developer to perform on whatever schedule they perform or not. So everything relative to the information around what's going to be here is on the City of Charlotte's website. If you go to the rezoning pages, you can look up the rezoning, find the information, find the contact information for the group that filed those plans. But we have nothing to do with anything outside of our 20 acres and that road and the other improvements that we're being made to do as a result of the rezoning process. The rest of that comes on the developer, and they may not build. Or similarly, it's like other places in Charlotte where we've got a school operating and there's townhomes being built next door. It's like this, where we've got multifamily being built right next to a high school while we're in here and operating. That's not something that's terribly unusual. So we'll know at least that we've got a publicly dedicated Golf Links Drive. The signalization will be there. Our connectivity will be done ahead of whatever else happens on the balance of the site.
At J.M. Robinson, they have a few different areas outside for the kids to go for their activity time, like their 20 minutes of like outdoor time, recess time during the day. Do you have that in mind on this site map? I know there's a blacktop at JM. They put basketball hoops on it, and then they have some grassy areas where they play. Is that going to be the same here, or I just can't really tell from here?
So you'll notice. You'll notice on the bus lot specifically, there are some basketball hoops and that type of thing on here, because this will, during the day, will become part of the play area. There are also some smaller areas. I pointed out earlier, this is where the media center is. There's a little courtyard area out here that we've designed so that it can be used as an outdoor teaching space. And like I said, this site, 20 acres is what it takes to get a middle school on it. And we've got 20 acres right here. And if, as I pointed out before, way at the top here, we've got a green buffer. So, a couple of those acres are not even buildable, but we're using it as green area so that it can be used as areas for the students as well. There'll be trails through there and that kind of thing.
And again, with the synthetic turf field, so this is a first for us, but moving to that as a standard, having the synthetic turf softball, baseball, and football fields means that those can also be used for recreation and recess as well.
What is your time frame for hiring principal? There's not much of a buffer for the end of construction and the start of school. Will there be enough time? Like, when will students know? Kind of twofold question. What is the timeline for the hiring the principal? And then if it's not going to open on time because of construction delays or any number of reasons, is there a hard deadline for notifying those parents? I know a lot of families at Knight's View, they had gone to open house with the anticipation of that school opening, and then last minute, whatever reason, permits or whatever, it didn't happen. Is there a deadline for telling families that their child will stay at JM versus coming to the new middle school, or what?
Absolutely there is. And if you read the actual boundary decision, it says all of the middle school and elementary feeder patterns change when the new school opened. It wasn't date certain. So we're right now feeling pretty confident about August 2026. We'll know well in advance if something does go sideways, and we would communicate that sooner rather than later. Similarly, this is the first meeting about this. We'll be back. There will be additional meetings as we go through. So we're going to keep you updated on the project itself. Relative to the principals, there's nobody in this room who has anything to do with that. So again, all I can point to is, again, the same sort of timeline with Ballantyne Ridge, selecting a principal and having that in place. I would expect a similar sort of timeline here. So again, we should have plenty of time to know those things, and there'll be plenty of opportunities for us to communicate to you about changes in this project, where we're coming, progression. There's some cool things too, if you go to the social media slide, if you don't mind, Gary. So if you've not been to cmsbondconstruction.com, our website, there's going to be an active camera on the site, so you'll actually be able to watch 24/7 what's going on the site in real time, so you don't have to just take our word for it or walk by it. There'll actually be a camera, so cmsbondconstruction.com, scroll to that project, and then all of those social medias, if that's something you do, because I don't, you can get to, updates on this project and all the other projects that way as well, and the QR code can take you to any or all of those, so you can follow, and information's pushed out that way, but the website's running 24/7. Yes.
Just speaking to what you said about how the date is, the boundaries don't start until the new school opens.
Right.
We know we're affected by it, but a lot of people I talk to are still operating in the impression that next fall, their middle school boundary is changing. So is CMS going to like really make it clear to people like, hey, you are still at Rea Farms, or you are still at South Charlotte or Crestdale or whatever? Just, are they going to do that?
Yes, there will absolutely be communication, but, you know, also, you can't go to a school that doesn't exist, so we hope everybody recognizes that, right? I know, right, no, I know, I'm just kidding, but yes, I know, you.
Middle school, and
Yeah.
so they're like, oh, we're all at JM next year, and we're like, don't you know that you're not? It's pushed back.
Right.
It feels like not everybody's aware
Right.
of that. Yeah, I see other schools that are currently open that don't know theirs has been delayed.
Good point. That's again why we extended the invite to all of the feeder schools as well and the other impacted schools, so that people would hear all of this information. And so tell people again, also, again, you can push them to the Bond construction site or any of this industry, they can call me, but yes, there will be other more formal communication.
Thank you.
The zoomed-in map of the school. Any specific reason why there's just one on Tom Short, like majority of the school, Polo Ridge, the Stone Creek Ranch, Ravencrest, that's where I come from, a lot of traffic coming on the west of Tom Short. That one entry into golf links is the only entry and exit for most people coming that side. Any reason why there is not any one more, at least an exit from there, carpool, buses? I mean, that one signal on Tom Short is right now seeming very problematic, especially from all the traffic coming from the west, from that side.
So again, this development, including our portion of it, went through a very rigorous process. The rezoning process with the city of Charlotte is a lengthy one, and it causes delays sometimes. We've got that fortunately well out of the way before we started the project, which was one of the drags on Knight's View, was the time that it took to get through the rezoning to be able to build the school. And I'm going to do a quick commercial for those of you who haven't heard my soapbox. Boards of Education in the state of North Carolina don't have taxing or funding authority, right? So the federal government doesn't give us any money to build schools. The state of North Carolina hasn't done a bond for public education since 1996, 1997, and we get $12 million a year from the North Carolina Education Lottery. It costs $45 million to build an elementary school. So it doesn't go very far. So we're entirely dependent on the voters in Mecklenburg County to support a bond referendum when Mecklenburg County allows us to go before the voters. And that's what gives us the opportunity to do this work. The city of Charlotte, the town of Huntersville, the town of Pineville, the town of Mint Hill, all the towns, they're the ones who make land use planning decisions. They decide what gets built when, where, how many apartments somebody can build, what can go on any particular piece of land. The city and the towns don't pay for schools. They don't pay for school constructions. They don't contribute to our operating budget. So we have to get in line with every other developer when we go through a rezoning process. When we go through the design and permitting process, we're treated no differently than anybody else. And so when you go through a rezoning process, there are things that are evaluated, like the road network, like the connectivity, and there are things that are imposed by the city or by one of the towns through the rezoning process, in addition to the things that would be required if you were doing what's called by right development. So as we work through that year-long process to get to the point where we could acquire this land and build this school, the city and the state of North Carolina, because NCDOT controls Tom Short, told us what to do. Right, so we're doing what we are being told to do as a result of the rezoning process. Not to say that we disagree or we're challenged, but the original conversation was that Camp Verde, which is why the news to me about submitting the address, but the original conversation was they wanted us to connect that in a vehicular connection. and have a connection to the neighborhood to the north that cars could have passed over. And we said, we don't think that's a good idea. The community agreed with us, and so that's how it changed to a pedestrian crossing, because they were going to make sure there was connectivity there one way or another. So pedestrian connectivity was sort of the agreement that we settled on, but otherwise that would have been a road. So these are the things that are imposed on us and on the private developer who's doing the balance of the site. And so we're doing the things that CDOT and NCDOT told us we needed to do to create a safe road and pedestrian network here. And that's a great point from Katie. So, I mean, there's a traffic study that we have to do at each one of the schools too, even if it's a by right development, but that is something that was fed into this rezoning and was taken into consideration about the number of cars we were going to generate, about the number of students we were going to have at the school, and that was part of what was used to determine the improvements that were required of us versus the improvements that were required of the private developer.
I just had a quick question. Those townhouses right there on the shaded portion on the right side of the screen, that's Rea Farms. Are they zoned to this middle school, or are they going to J.M. Robinson? Because they could walk down that road, but are they part of it?
So as part of the boundaries, and you can see this on the South County Relief site, so it's there on the CMS website. You can look up South County Relief, but yes, part of this was to facilitate Rea Farms becoming a full magnet school and assigning those students to this school.
Are they going to come to this school or to J.M. Robinson?
The ones that are adjacent are, yeah.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go and look at the map, you can punch in addresses, you can see it for yourself, but
Okay.
it is on the CMS website.
Okay.
Yeah. And just if you go into the search function, type South County Relief, and it'll take you to everything that we did for those many months.
Well, that was the thing, because I thought Rea Farms was being redrawn to J.M. Robinson.
So part of it is, but there was a split, right?
It.
Because the Polo
Okay.
Ridge, so there was a change there with the feed and the boundary. Yes.
Because I didn't realize how close it was
Right,
to the
yes.
new school. I was like, that really doesn't make any sense. Thank you.
So probably next spring. So I would say, we're heading into the holiday season, not a great time. We've got some other projects that we're going to be kicking off and doing the first meeting on. So then coming back and doing second meeting updates, we'd be looking at, late spring of next year. And again, in the meantime, all of those socials and our Bond website, there's plenty of information to keep up with there as well. Well, if there are no other questions for the room, we can hang out till 7:30 or so. We need to get out so that the custodians can finish up and we can turn the school back over. But I do want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I want to thank our designers for spending their evening with us as well. And I hope everybody came away with an idea of what we're trying to do here. And we really appreciate your participation, support, and engagement. And there will be more to follow. Thanks.